Hello and welcome to Tête à Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest this week is Iván Duque. He is Colombia's former president and he joins us from Bogota. Thank you very much, Mr. Duque.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
The Trump administration has deployed some 10,000 troops to the Caribbean. It has also launched several military strikes against alleged drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean. Now in the Pacific, Colombia's President Gustavo Petro has vividly denounced this operation as murder. Do you agree with your president?
Well, I don't agree for multiple reasons, Mark. The first is that interdiction operations in the Pacific and in the Caribbean have been carried out for almost a decade or more between the United States, Colombia, and other countries. Just in the Caribbean, there was a campaign called the Orion Campaign, where 17 countries did interdiction operations against vessels and planes. So now it's done also in the Pacific. And I think the fact that the U.S. for the first time is using also military capacity to support the countries in deterring the access of narcotics to the rest of the hemisphere, I think it's positive. And I think these interceptions, these attacks have also a protocol. There has to be warning calls. If they're not responded, there can be an engagement. That's also based on interdiction protocols that are applied internationally. So that's why I don't agree with what Petro is doing, because he's actually trying to use this in order to polarize, to break the relationship with the United States. And it's aimed to be used for polarization during the presidential campaign in 2026.
Mr. President, a Colombian man has allegedly been killed, and you described the previous operation, but those were joint operations. This time, no Latin America is being consulted. The U.S. just strikes and kills people without offering evidence. I mean, this is very different from what you described.
Well, I think there's something interesting, Mark, because obviously there's a room for controversy. In the specific case that you mentioned, that President Petro referred as an innocent fisherman, it happens that that person had a very long criminal record. In fact, he was captured by Colombian authorities some years before for arms smuggling. So if there are boats that are aimed to take narcotics from a country A to a country B, and even trying to smuggle it into the United States, I believe that if the U.S. uses its capacity to do interdiction, I think it's lawful. Now, that's a debate also in the United States for sure. But I think interceptions, interdictions, and bombardments, they're not new. They're legitimate if the warnings and the protocols are not followed by the vessels or the planes. So I think at this point, we're not justifying that innocent people are killed, obviously not. What we're trying to say is that interdiction against narcotics is a very effective deterrent mechanism.
The U.S. president has also now threatened to conduct land operations. Are you in favor of U.S. military land operation, say in Venezuela or even in your country, Colombia, to fight the drug cartels, as he claims?
Well, I think there's a very interesting difference, Mark. In the case of Colombia, as you know, for many decades, the U.S. and Colombian authorities have done joint operations against narco-traffickers in the Colombian territory. As you know, when Pablo Escobar was killed in 1993, the United States supported Colombia in order to fight the kingpin of the Medellin cartel. When we fought Otoniel, we also had intelligence support from the UK and also the United States. And there are also joint operations against members of FARC and ELN historically that have taken place in Colombia, because there is and there has been a very important alliance to fight narco-trafficking. In Venezuela, the case is different, because Venezuela is run now by a dictator who is now the head of the Cartel de los Soles, as we have denounced it for many years, because they have a criminal operation. They've also provided safe haven to members of FARC and ELN in the Venezuelan territory. So now, with the United States declaring Maduro the kingpin of the Soles Cartel, the Soles Cartel being operating in Venezuela and trying to smuggle drugs from Venezuela to the Caribbean, allows the U.S. to do operations when it comes to protect their national security. Is that controversial? Yes, it is. Has that happened before? Yes, it has happened, as it happened with Osama bin Laden. If there is a threat to the national security of the United States, at least in the United States legislation, it is lawful to undertake those operations. And if you look, for example, deterrent operations that had taken place against terrorist groups, they've also been legitimized by any violation to Resolution 1373 that was produced by the United Nations after September 11.
Mr. Duque, so you would be in favor of a U.S. land operation in Venezuela to topple Nicolas Maduro, let's say?
More than talk about Nicolas Maduro, am I in favor of any military operation to fight the Soles cartel? Yes, I'm in favor for any operation against dismantling the Soles cartel. We need to dismantle that cartel. It's a major threat not only to the U.S. national security, it's a threat to the atmospheric security, and it has been historically a threat to the Colombian security as they have sponsored and protected members of FARC, ELN, and other cartels. So if the U.S. wants to undertake precision operations against those cartels, I am in favor of that.
Donald Trump has called Gustavo Petro a thug, a bad guy, a drug trafficker. Do you agree with this description of Colombia's president?
Well, I'm sad to see, Mark, how a bilateral relation that has lasted for more than 200 years, that have been bipartisan and bicameral, that allowed Colombia to become declared a strategic ally, non-permanent member of NATO by the United States, which is the highest diplomatic recognition of any country in the Western Hemisphere, has been put now in danger because of all the imprudence from Petro. As you know, Petro has called Trump a Nazi, a promoter of genocide. He went to the streets of New York in a non-institutional scenario to ask the American troops not to follow the orders of their commander-in-chief. And also, Petro has sided in favor of Nicolas Maduro. The fact that Colombia was decertified on the war against drugs, the fact that these seizures as a percentage of the potential production of narcotics is in the lowest levels in 20 decades, that the manual eradication groups have been dismantled, all that has been creating a much better environment for narco-traffickers to operate. And also, Petro asking the Colombian troops to support Nicolas Maduro is also kind of reckless. So I hate that this situation has escalated to the level list. And as I have said, we expect that the United States individualizes the management of this situation with Petro and not generates a collective punishment for Colombia, since Colombia has historically been not only a major ally, but a strategic partner in the fight against narco-terrorism hemispherically.
You were president when Donald Trump was first in the White House. Have you tried to reach out to him to try to say what you just told me?
Well, I think we have in Colombia something very positive, Mark, and I call it a parallel diplomacy. I think people that have worked in order to strengthen the bilateral relationship, obviously that would include me and many other former heads of state, but also members of agremiations, members of the judicial system, members of the military forces that know how valuable this relation is. I think we are all trying to send that message institutionally. We're trying to send it to members of Congress, members of the White House, members of the State Department, just because what Petro wants is actually to destroy that bilateral relationship. What Petro wants, and that's how I call it the Nero syndrome, he wants to see everything in flames because he's trying to use this to victimize himself and try to make this a very important element of the presidential campaign for 2026. Petro doesn't care if this creates a massive loss of jobs or if it deteriorates the economy. All he wants is to have a scenario where he can polarize and victimize himself. And that's why we're asking that any sanction will be individualized and not a punishment for a country that has a lasting relationship and that has a great appreciation for the United States of America in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, Petro is, on the contrary, saying that Trump is seeking to affect Colombia's election. I'm quoting Petro, seeking once again the triumph of the extreme right, which is strongly and provenly linked to drug trafficking. He has actually accused you of having been president during a massive increase of the production of cocaine. What do you respond to those accusations of Trump siding with you and you being linked to drug trafficking?
Well, let me be very clear, Mark, because as somebody used to say, in politics, you're entitled to your own opinions. but not to your own facts. When you look at what happened in Colombia between 2015 and 2018, we passed from 50,000 hectares to more than 180,000 hectares. When I assumed office, we were very aggressive against narco-trafficking, and we stopped the exponential growth, and we actually had a very important reduction. We also had to face other kinds of pressures, and however, we extradited more than 700 kingpins to the United States, and we also captured the top leader of one of the toughest cartels in the Americas, so-called Otoniel. The United States worked with us, with my administration, with the Trump administration, with the Biden administration. We were very effective. We were certified the 4 years. We had a very important judiciary cooperation agreement. So all we did was actually to be very effective against these kinds of threats, including that we also denounced the president of those terrorist organizations from Colombia and Venezuela, and I personally denounced Nicolás Maduro before the International Criminal Court. What we have now is totally different. We've seen how the hectares of illegal crops have spiked. We've seen how the manual eradication groups have been dismantled. We've seen how many of the kingpins have been now called as promoters of peace so that they cannot be trialed nor chased by the authorities. And also the fact that we have cited, and this is very sad to see Petro cited in favor of Maduro and the Cartel de los Soles, has triggered all this. So the evidence is very clear. We not only were supportive, but we were very effective, something that has not happened in the Petro administration.
Iván Duque, I want to thank you very much for being our guest from Bogota in Colombia, and I want to thank you all for watching this show.